take it forward from this session. Just maintain the time. That's
Thank you so much, Mr. Arnab. Good afternoon once again. I think we've already had a lot of topics having been covered in the first two sessions. We are having a discussion on connected packaging, which is a theme for this particular, I would say, event, the half-day event today. And I think the discussion that we are going to have is on how digital transformation in packaging actually gives an experience to the consumers and across the entire supply chain. So the idea for us here is to delve on where we are. Just to give a context, maybe I could say that connected packaging is maybe a subset of smart packaging, in the sense that we evolved from packaging functions with the basics necessities of protection, information, convenience, which then went on to intelligent and smart packaging. And today we have a situation where we know that there is Digital India. We have a very high rate of digital adoption, and we are at a threshold of a situation where we know that there is a data that could be transferred from a package to maybe a device that the consumer holds, and this could be used for I would say connecting the various levels at the supply chain, or even to get basic information on where the product has come from, how the packaging has happened, where is it going to go. So before we begin, what I would request is maybe we'll start with Ms. Rachel, and maybe you can just brief your role in ITC, and quickly say how maybe connected packaging is enabling, I would say, brands to get connected with consumers to begin with.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Iyer. So at ITC, I basically handle something called digital strategy along with new business growth. So we have a specific campaign called Pack Connect, which is packaging that connects. And so when I just joined ITC, I had this opportunity of kind of dwelling into this smart packaging. What is QR code? From a whole background of what is packaging, I all of a sudden got into what can be done in packaging such that it gets more interesting. So me being from a tech background is mostly like, okay, packaging cannot be just a box, which speaks nothing. It cannot be just graphics or artwork. It needs to be beyond that. So that's the drive that picked me up, and then we started focusing on QR codes, some kind of digital tokens, etc. Today, in the last 2 to 3 years, connected packaging at ITC, or in general, the industry, if I say, has evolved into something that speaks just beyond the box or just the pouch or whatever we use as a packaging. So we have QR codes, we have RFIDs, we have barcodes, we have variable data codes on packaging, which you can scan, you can interact, you can enter onto some platform, redeem a loyalty coupon, get a cashback. So the scope is endless. It can be used for protecting from anti-counterfeit to ensure that each pack is unique. It can be used to provide loyalty to your customers. It can be used for traceability. So the moment you have a unique ID on each of your box, on each of your pack, it's technically that you're naming that particular pack, and then you're saying, okay, A is manufactured in location B, and then it's going to location C, and then it's going to location D. There is no other A in this universe. So you're giving a unique identifier to each of your packaging. So that's the whole game of connected packaging. And like you rightly mentioned, yes, it is a subset of smart packaging. Smart packaging is something even much larger that maybe we can discuss someday later. But this is more or less what connected packaging is today.
Thanks. I think, Manojji, I think you being a very big part of brand protection, could you explain how maybe packaging is today used as a communication or an engagement channel for brand protection? Also maybe give some interactive feature which presently you're seeing in use, maybe outside India, and how you see India these features being integrated in Indian context as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you, BCCI, for calling me to share my views. See, I think my expertise is from the authentication and anti-counterfeit background, so I'm trying to connect that to what connected packaging is all about. See, brands spend a lot of time, effort, and money to make their package attractive, to lure the consumer to interact with them, to make sure that at least their package gets noticed by virtue of the packaging or the graphics therein. Now, with the advent of digital transformation, where we have the QR codes also playing a big role, as far as the authentication landscape goes, we typically recommend that, brands should have an anti-counterfeit or authentication feature into their packaging, because counterfeiting, is everywhere. We all know that, there are a lot of, any number of goods and products that are getting counterfeited here. Interestingly, the earliest recorded history of a counterfeit goes back to 200 to 300 BC. Yeah? The very famous author, William Dalrymple, in his book called The Golden Gate, he has actually researched and found instances of counterfeit brass lamps and intaglios, which were made in Rome those days, to have been made in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and they were passed off as original Roman products. So that's how back counterfeiting goes on. So it's imperative that the brands, as they grow, they need to have features that the consumer can interact with and identify that this is indeed a genuine product. Typical examples, that we have is like, the most commonly used feature is a hologram, which we all know, and that's how the authentication in India grew. So way back in early 1990s, hologram was a big thing. It still is actually. And a lot of products tend to have a hologram which people interact with and kind of then satisfy themselves that this what we are buying is indeed genuine. Now the important thing here is, whatever the feature that you have, whether it's a hologram or whether it's a non-clonable code. Rachel, you made a point about codes also allowing the consumers to authenticate. Apologies, but I have a different view. The QR codes per se can be copied, okay? Because it's pretty easy to scan a QR code and reprint it. And the same duplicate QR code, when it is scanned, will take you to the same website and give you the same result, okay? So what is also now coming along is non-clonable codes. A few companies in the country are offering a code which cannot just be scanned and reprinted. So then, of course, a QR code does become an authentication technology. But the way we currently see it, you scan a code, you access whatever information there is. Great for consumer engagement, loyalty, rewards, everything. You want to check the traceability of the product, where it's coming from. Super, all that is perfectly in place. Unfortunately, the scan rate, to the best of my understanding, is still less than 1%. The government of India had mandated that the top 300 brands in the country will have a QR code. This notification came, I think, some 3 years ago, if I remember right. And the top 300 brands were obviously, because it was mandated, they put it onto the packaging. But the number of pharma companies that I speak to, and everyone is like, not even 1% people are scanning. So I think that consumer awareness needs to be created. People need to be encouraged to scan the code. And one good thing would be, if the brands can possibly integrate the promotional aspect into the codes. Like if you scan the code, of course you register for your product warranty, etc., and you get to see the complete traceability. But there is some kind of a loyalty program built into it. If there's some rewards built into it, then I think that will be an incentive for the brands to scan the codes, which then would help the brands and the consumer reap the wider benefits that the QR code and the digital connectivity provides.
Excellent. I think, so I was just thinking, before coming today, and I got an update yesterday from Alexa which said that, do you want to order a product that I ordered about 1 month back? You just tell yes and I'll place an order for you. Now this is an online shopping example. Now if this can be connected to the product, I think we were just reading somewhere that there are brands in Europe where there is a very thin sensor that is integrated into a box, which is used for pet food. And if the owner does not pay a lot of attention to how much quantity is left, the sensor senses the amount of product left inside, places an order, and maybe within 2 or 3 days, the dog food comes back to the home. So as a brand, do you see there are some of these new revenue streams that would come up where people would end up buying more such products because of these connected packaging features?
So yeah, definitely yes. So just to make the thing clear, I am here from the ITC's packaging business. So while we interact with a lot of brands, so it would not be first-hand information that I'm giving from the brand perspective. But yes, definitely there are a lot of ways in which brands can earn more money by having a QR code or by having any digital token on it, be it a non-clonable code or a regular code, any code on it. So for example, what you mentioned of the pet food, there's one particular technology that exists today. It's more like a ongoing. It's for oil and any liquid items. So for example, you have a vinegar bottle or you have an oil bottle that you purchase. Today, even on Amazon, you have this whole option of buying things monthly. You can take a monthly subscription. So every month that thing gets refilled and then it comes to your store. So similar to that, this particular bottle again has sensors which can kind of measure how much of the oil or how much of the vinegar is still remaining in it. Accordingly, it places order for replenishing it. It also gives information to the brand that this particular person's consumption pattern is so and so. In fact, the next extension of that is more like you have a smart refrigerator where all of the food that you're keeping inside is smart in this manner. So all of the food that is on your individual shelf, individual racks, is actually communicating to your smart refrigerator that, hey buddy, I'm getting done, it's time for you to place a new order. So it's like a fresh whole grocery basket of order is getting placed by your refrigerator without you even noticing it. So that's the kind of growth that you can expect. And as far as a brand is concerned, so eventually, yes, unless we have different barricades of data pockets, I'm assuming whatever information the refrigerator has, it's quite possible that the oil or the olive oil company can also track in those details. Cool. So imagine there's a different brand of coconut oil that the same consumer is buying and it's kept in the same territory. You can even get information that this particular consumer uses so-and-so product of some other brand too. That information can also be used in cross-selling or promoting your new product or your additional product. Again, once you have the information, the simplest of what is happening today is the moment someone scans any QR code, the moment you go to any web-based application or any app anywhere of any brand, you are getting tagged as a unique customer, a unique consumer in their database. And that's how the brands send you WhatsApp promotions, messages, you get ads, it's all targeted. So you are technically cross-selling and upselling whatever products you have the moment you have a digital identification on your packaging.
I think you made a very important mention on the subscription model. I think there is an excellent survey which was conducted about 4 or 5 years back. This was by Jabil, if I'm not wrong. And they had done a survey on connected packaging with what consumers are doing, where it explored both these. And when you were telling bottle, I recollected this example where, when there is real-time reading of data. So there is this Johnny Walker Blue bottle, where if you know that a person has opened the bottle, when you scan the bottle, there is a very thin electronic sensor which tells that this person has already opened the bottle. So the information that is given to him is different types of cocktail recipes. Till that point of time, it was the brand, the different options that are available, or what comes from the supply chain. But after that, so basically this is real time. So now when you're talking about anti-counterfeiting, I think there is real-time tracking as well, isn't it? So can you explain how real-time tracking and maybe I would say anti-counterfeiting solutions that maybe you offer works in the supply chain?
Okay, the current trend in the authentication technologies is going phygital, okay? So yes, the physical features have always been there. You've had the hologram, you've had the security printing, the galoche patterns, security inks, as the lady here knows better than me. So all those options are of course there, but the current trend very clearly is to merge the two, where you have a bit of the digital verification, which typically is done by having non-clonable codes. So you are looking increasingly at products or labels. Now these things are best applied on a label, which is then further pasted on a particular product. So there even are products which I've seen where you have invisible codes. Okay, these are not QR codes, these are dot patterns which are printed onto the package, and you can't see it, right? All that the brand tells you, and this is where I think of another, shall I say, layer or requirement of the brand or the consumer engagement comes in, is that the consumer needs to know where to scan, using which app, and then the counterfeiter doesn't know, and only this app can recognize the pattern. So those technologies are increasingly finding their way, and this is where, I think it all, because I think with digital, connectivity is a given. The very fact that you're using a digital technology or a technique to, then by default the connectivity is there, because you're going to have to download some app, you're going to have to perhaps register yourself in some website or whatever. So that makes it a lot easier for the brand to then communicate. So I think that aspect of going phygital in the authentication technology space, that is like the next big thing as we see it. And you can connect even without going digital, so to say. How's that? Again, elements that are very unique, eye-catching. You have, we have all seen a banknote, right? And there are some very complex patterns which are very, very easy to register. These are outputs of typically some high security design software. So some of the brands that we are currently serving, they are asking for patterns such as that, because ultimately, I believe that connectivity, yes, digital is a very, very, very important part of connectivity between the brand and the consumer. But I think a lot of this connectivity can also happen by using smart designing and get the consumer to focus on that. So some of our customers are really now asking, say, give me complex Galoche patterns. Then we talk about the banknotes and what the features there, what can we possibly do? Because at HoloFlex, we design both holograms and labels, right? So we have our own high security design software which we use to create some special patterns which are very unique to identify. And we further supplement that with technologies such as holograms or the codes as the customer wants it. And another thing now that we have, which a lot of brands are asking for, is machine readable features or machine verifiable features. So we have some simple readers which can be carried, in your hand or in the pocket, and you look at a product and what you need to do is just point the device to the specific area where the feature is, and you get an audio alert if you like, you get a vibration if you like, or you get a green light if you like. So several options are available. Yes, authentication cannot happen without connectivity between the brand and the consumer, and there are now several ways of doing it, which is not phygital for sure, digital for sure again is also there, and the physical technologies are still there, which allows the brand to connect with the consumer.
Right, and so you were talking about data, right? So there is also data privacy which comes because a lot of customer data that is going. And initially you mentioned about the Pack on It campaign. Can you explain more what ITC offers in terms of this Pack on It campaign? And maybe you can help us know the role of connected packaging in terms of ESG compliance and sustainability as well.
So I'll take it in two parts. First on the data privacy part and what under PackConnect we offer. Second on the sustainability angle of it. So definitely when you do a campaign, when you do a loyalty campaign, especially if you're doing it with the big brands, definitely they have the whole global rules and regulations that needs to be followed. Under PackConnect, we do all kinds of campaigns. So a quick example for a consumer brand could be, we had an apparel customer who came up and told, I have huge counterfeit of my product in the northeast states of India. So he manufactures a product in the south and it's sold in northeast. And he has no idea who is buying or where it's selling and who is even selling the fake product. So every year there's a lot of allegations that the end consumer is racing against the brand, that I brought a product of yours, but it doesn't have the same quality that it used to have. And then there's a lot of cases and legal battles that's fought all the time. So the only query of this particular brand owner was that just let's have something on the packaging that's kind of differentiating. So the striking detail of this particular brand's box is a red box, which has a certain name on the top. And it has a window, and then you see the dhoti inside. It's in fact a dhoti brand, an apparel dhoti, lungi brand, which has this huge counterfeit issue. So a consumer is basically maybe, somebody who has a day job, a middle class guy who keeps buying, and it's quite expensive. It's about 500 rupees kind of a dhoti. It's not the very bare minimum dhoti. So he buys it for maybe a Ramadan or some kind of a event that comes up once or twice in a year. So the consumer striking detail that they look for is a red color box which has the brand name on the top. And that's no longer working because every counterfeiter who has the same product has the same thing. And the whole reason why there's a counterfeiting is because this particular brand sells the dhoti to the distributor at a price of say 200 rupees and the MRP is somewhere around 350 rupees. Now the fake brands sells the same product to the distributor at a price of about 100 rupees and the distributor can still sell the same product at 350 rupees. So why bother selling the original brand when he can make a higher margin? So it's technically the distributor or the middleman in the system who is causing this whole counterfeit issue here. So first of all, we had to get into the detail of why the whole thing is happening, where in the supply chain there is an issue, and that's accordingly how we devise a pack and Nick campaign for this particular brand. So in this case, what we devised was like what Mr. Kochar was saying, let's have a non-clonable QR code. So we printed a non-clonable QR code on the box, and now that's just a QR code. A consumer has to scan the QR code to authenticate it. So what's the incentive to scan? Someone who's buying a dhoti would not really spend 10 minutes there to scan the code, authenticate, and then, wait and buy and all that stuff. They I scan if I'm getting something in return. That's clear. And the brand owner was also clear, I don't want to pay distributors any further margin on or any incentive for them to sell my product. I would rather trust the consumer who is buying the product. I want to reward that guy who is authenticating my product. So we created an end-to-end campaign where the consumer scans the QR code, they authenticate that it is original. Once it's authenticated, there is a unique code which they can scratch and enter and they get a cashback, an instant cashback. Now it's a middle class guy, he does value an instant cashback, whatever it is, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, he does value that. Somebody who used to fight legal battles about 5 to 6 months in a year is now hardly spending time on it for less than a month right now. It's been running for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and it's doing wonders for this particular brand. So each and every case or each and every campaign that ITC is offering as a pack and Nick campaign is something related to a pain point that the brand owner has always told us. It's not just a plug and play kind of a solution. So at some place it's probably a counterfeit. Another example, for example, we did a campaign with Mad Over Donuts. So Mad Over Donuts has this unique USP that their donuts are not pre-made and then served just like any other donut. The toppings are customizable and it's made in the outlet in front of you. So they are like, we want to kind of propose this, we want to pitch this, or we want to talk about this much stronger. So the whole campaign we did was an augmented reality campaign. There is no counterfeit or anything in this. It's a normal QR code, not a non-clonable one. Somebody who scans the QR code plays an AR game. They get to, tilt their head. It's an AR filter basically. You tilt your head and choose what topping you want. You want a chocolate topping or you want a ganache or whatever. And as you tilt your head, it gets formed in front of you in 3D. So it's a consumer engagement aspect. So that was created. Consumers come, they scan it in the kiosk or wherever. It was there on the box as well. They scan it. They make whatever donut they want. They get a discount coupon for the donut. And this discount coupon can be redeemed only if they go to the store. So again, now you're upselling because you have to come back to a store to kind of consume it. So these are a few examples. We do with a lot of industries. Counterfeit is mostly with apparel, mechanic kind of industry, plumbing industry, electrical industry, pharma, seeds, those kind of industries where there is a lot of counterfeit issues. Consumer engagement is with all kinds of brands because it's something that's open to all the brands.
Yeah.
And in terms of data privacy, so we ensure that each of this is end-to-end encrypted. So ITC does not have any, information, personal information that we are collecting. Mostly we try to see if a campaign can be enabled without the collection of personal information. Like if you just want to authenticate, or if you just want to show some experience to somebody, you don't really have to collect their mobile number or email ID or name. That is only required if you want to give a cashback, or if you want to actually do some targeted WhatsApp messaging or stuff like that. So most of the time we try to see if we can avoid collecting the personal information. If it is collected, it would be end-to-end encrypted. It would be something that the brand owns. It would be a separate portal for the brand, and then the brand has access, login, etc. to it, and it's completely different from brand to brand. So that's how we ensure that it's not compromised. None of the information is compromised.
Excellent. I think we're almost towards the end, but so she was talking about the cost of the product, and I understand that connected packaging is still at a very nascent stage in India. How important is this cost factor when these brands choose to have such features such as product authentication, or maybe today we have blockchain enhanced traceability? How see in the next 5-10 years, how is it going to be implemented?
See, cost is always a concern, right? We are in a very, very cost-conscious economy, and every brand needs to save every paisa that they can, and which is a given. But what we try and tell our customers is that, look, whatever you spend on your authentication feature is an investment. Please do not look upon it as an expense, because this investment in the authentication feature is going to help you get a higher market share. Whatever you're currently losing to the counterfeiter would come to you if you can put in a strong and effective and relevant enough feature which the consumer can identify and then take advantage thereof. Then he will invariably stick with you. You will have greater brand loyalty. The consumer will have greater confidence in your product. So as a result of this increased market share, you're going to be benefiting out of that. So the profits that you're likely to make on this enhanced market share will more than offset the cost of the expense, which is not really an expense. To my mind, it's an investment. So that, I think, is always money very, very well spent. But having said that, as the technology moves, as new products and new systems come into play, obviously a new technology is going to be priced at a higher level till such time it reaches its optimized level where the unit cost of the technology goes down. So, and another thing that we openly talk to the customers is that, look, the counterfeiters are a very, very smart lot these days. They are people with money, people with resources, and a very strong intent. So once you raise the bar, you put a barrier in terms of an authentication feature for which the counterfeiter has to make an effort. In spite of all his resources, he will immediately try and shift to a brand which does not have this bar or the barrier. So that is another psychology that is invariably there. So our advice to the consumer, or to the brand, is always that maybe look upon it as an investment and make sure you create awareness of this solution, because unless the consumer knows what he's looking for, you're going to have a problem. So you got to turn your consumers into your police force in a sense, because if they see a product at a retailer and where they do not find your authentication feature, then they're going to tell the retailer or the other people around him by word of mouth, and invariably people will stop buying a product without the security feature. So that, I think, that awareness creation is very, very important. And we recently, with a big pharma brand, I also have the privilege of being the president of ASPA, Authentication Solution Providers Association. So the CEO of a very big brand reached out to us at ASPA, and he said, look, there's a lot of counterfeit medicines in the market, and what can we, as one of the prominent players in the industry, do about it? We want to understand the landscape, and we want to be able to figure out how to tackle this problem. So of course we discussed the technologies, we discussed the data. ASPA does a lot of reports on counterfeiting, and we have a lot of data there which we shared with him. But one point that we made, and he was very quick to grasp on, was how to create an awareness in the market amongst the consumer that there is a high chance of a counterfeit medicine if you're not careful enough. It's just simple stuff like, and we're all an educated lot here. At least I speak for myself. Whenever I buy medicine from a chemist, I never check. I don't always insist on a cash memo. If he gives me a cash memo, well, if it doesn't, too bad. It doesn't bother me. I never check the batch number which is printed on the medicine to what the chemist has written on the cash memo. Anyone who's selling a fake medicine will never do that, right? So these are some simple things that the consumer needs to be made aware of, and that creating that consumer awareness is the key to fighting all problems relating to counterfeit. There was a very, very famous campaign called Jago Grahak Jago some time back, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with. You know, it sensitized all of us as consumers to our rights whenever we made any kind of purchase at any retailer, right? So at ASPA, you know, we have been pitching to the Consumer Affairs Ministry in the government that, you know, maybe you should also launch some kind of campaign which creates an awareness among the consumers of their right to buy a genuine product. So, you know, that awareness is a very, very critical piece in this entire ecosystem of fighting counterfeit. So, you know, that is
something like an authentication sahi hai kind of a campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which goes for not only the brands but also for the consumers. I think last parting point, maybe we'll take questions after that, is what would be your recommendation to the policymakers in terms of how to facilitate the growth of connected packaging? Are we doing enough, or are there avenues that we can open up to improve the adoption?
I think a lot of it, so rules and regulations are coming up saying that, you know, all pharma brands need to have a QR code, or all FMCG brands need to show the source of the food products, etc. But when it comes to the adoption and the scan rates, like Mr. Kochar was mentioning, adoption is very, very low as far as the consumers are concerned. None of the consumers, I mean, including, even though we're speaking today, I'm pretty sure even me and you would not scan a QR code on the pack if it is not giving you anything in return. So incentive is something that everybody is looking for. But what policies or what lawmakers can actually do is, at least in industries where it matters, for example, like the agri industry or the pharma industry, or even food service packaging, or wherever sustainability, health hazards are there, consumers need to be made aware about what could be the potential threat of, you know, consuming a counterfeit product. For example, a pharma counterfeit product could technically put your life at stake. So that kind of a understanding or knowledge transmission is something that needs to be done. It could be as a policy that the brands need to hold sessions for the consumers to enable them understand what are the different counterfeit products out there in the market. Most of the consumers today are not aware about how does a hologram look like, or what is the difference between something which is a hologram and something which just shines on the pack. So it's not just a gold color ink that it is. So this kind of a knowledge sharing has to happen in some or the other way. It could be a policy, it could be a session or a class in the school. I don't know. It has to get transferred at one or the other point. It could be through the brands, or it could be through the normal education system. But how to differentiate a counterfeit packaging with an original packaging is an information that every consumer needs to be made aware of.
Thanks. I think you've alluded to the same point. If I mean the earlier case, anything else you would want to add in terms of?
Entirely agree with what the points that Rachel has made, and yeah, without repeating any of her suggestions, if I may just add that I think the government needs to have stronger IP protection and anti-counterfeit laws in the country. I think we know that system is a little weak at times, but I think if we can set a few examples, particularly in the case of pharmaceutical counterfeiting, which I think is absolutely a heinous, deadly crime, you'll actually be playing with people's lives. So if the enforcement of all the laws are there in place. I've been talking to General from CDSCO, he's talking about all the laws and acts that are there, but it's the implementation thereof, and that unfortunately the time it takes to actually convict the guilty. So I think the enforcement probably needs to be better, and if I were to make a suggestion, that would be definitely right up there with the awareness piece, with which Rachel has already. Just another point. I think another way of creating the awareness is to sensitize the packaging fraternity. Okay, so we are also trying to interact with IIP, Indian Institute of Packaging, and we have, when I say we, I mean ASPA. I am my ASPA head right now. And we've been talking to them about including a chapter on authentication technologies, so that the next batch of the packaging technologists that come into the market, they're armed with the basic knowledge of exactly what anti-counterfeiting technologies are, and that hopefully will spread the word further. Thank you.
Absolutely true. Any questions quickly from anyone on the audience? Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, this question is for both the speakers. Is this possible that anybody who, suppose we are a company, we are manufacturing something, and we want to capture data of our customer. If I am selling on, say, Amazon, I am selling on quick commerce, I am selling on Zomato, Swiggy, we don't get the data typically. So if I put up a QR code or something on my packaging and give a offer of a instant cashback, can I capture the data of that mobile number and the person's name? This will solve a very big problem, as we are not getting data when we are selling on these platforms. We don't know our customer.
Maybe I think Rachel can take first.
Definitely yes. If the customer ends up scanning your QR code, you will get the information.
Wonderful. And a counter question. If a customer doesn't want to be identified and he still wants the QR, is that solution possible?
Maybe you can answer that.
The consumer doesn't want to be identified.
Yeah, he doesn't want to give his identity, but still he wants the cashback.
I suppose you will have to know who you want to give the cash to or the incentive to.
This is a logical question which I ask. So there's always a counter for everything in life, right? So I ask the counter also.
I think it's how you incentivize, and when you're dealing with the platform, they have their own laws and rules and regulations about what data they'll share with you and all. So that's a separate chapter which I'm not entirely an expert on. But broadly speaking, if there is a code which you can incentivize a consumer enough, maybe give him an incentive to get a 10% off on his next purchase if he bought it from you directly instead. I'm just kind of coming with a random thought here. So yes, then you can possibly incentivize him to scan a code and register himself with you.
Yeah, this could be a big market, for you manufacturers if you are doing this. This is a big market segment. Okay, one more thing. How can this technology be utilized to get data of unsold stock at various retail outlets? And suppose it is stuck somewhere, we can recall that and give it on a discount at somebody else. This kind of things can be managed. Suppose my goods are in, say, 1,000 stores, and I want to know what is remaining towards the expiry date, say 3 weeks before the expiry date, what is unsold inventory. Can this tech be used for that?
Okay, I'll
maybe in the
that.
supply chain, the inventory management.
So it depends. Since you're mentioning the last mile of sales, which is a retail outlet,
Yeah.
a real-time tracking, if you really want to know, you will need some kind of a device on the packaging which is communicating to you in the real time.
Right.
That's going to be quite expensive.
Not only that, at the retail level, see, point is, if you want this information, then you have to ensure that you have complete traceability of your material as it moves through the entire supply chain, including the point of retail where he has to scan in all the material that you have given him. And all this has to be a platform which you have visibility of. If you can perhaps achieve that, set up a complete track and trace yourself, then that's possible. But then when you're selling it through platforms like Amazon and Flipkarts of the world, then I really don't know how this can be achieved, because then they are not scanning in anything which is connected to you and giving you that feedback.
True.
Right.
I think since you are running out of time, maybe the speakers will be available. So post the session, maybe you can just connect with them. So thank you very much, Rachel. One more? Yeah, please, sir.
When you have to pay, there also you scan multi-point scanning. Instead of that, why don't we think of a scanning process, which is a single scanning process? By that means you can actually restrict that counterfeit products also. At the same time, you pay that. You make your payments as well. So why can't we think of a single scanning which will be there on the product itself? Rachel, if you can, answer to that.
Quite a complex system because the payment gets integrated with information.
It is.
Yeah. To ease,
When
maybe ease
when I
out.
thought of this,
Yeah, true.
When I thought of
true,
this,
true.
this is happening through maybe RFIDs. Okay, this is happening overseas countries. It is happening. You put the products on your basket, take it through the channel, it pays. So why can't we do it that same thing through QR codes? That's the question.
So RFID is obviously a different concept. If you've shopped in Decathlon, you would have noticed. You can just put your clothes in one dabba and then it'll automatically populate whatever you've bought. You don't need to scan individually each of the SKUs. So RFID based checkout systems definitely are good, because RFID's whole concept is that in one go you can scan whatever 10,000 or thousands of things that's in the range. So that's an easier way of scanning. But when you say to implement the same on a QR code, not really feasible because of the technical aspect of a QR code, but we never know, you can explore, because QR code requires each and individual QR code to be scanned. The whole point why people move to RFID is to avoid this individual scanning wala aspect. Moving to the payment part, not very sure how can the payment be triggered and whom will it be triggered to if you have one QR code and then you're making the payment. But yeah, it's worth exploring, and I think a lot of innovations can definitely come in this space.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Manoj, and thank you, Rachel. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. It was a very engaging session, and of course something for all of us to think about, because we all should avoid counterfeiting and be aware of the products we are buying. So before we quickly move on to the next session, we would like to present the mementos to the speakers on the dais. So I would call upon the stage Mr. Himadri Mukhopadhyay to kindly hand over the mementos. To Rachel first. To Professor Iyer. And to Mr. Kocher. We are very sorry that we've missed giving out the mementos in the previous session. So I would call upon on the stage the speakers of our previous session, so that we can hand over the mementos to them as well. Ms. Manjusha Singh, Mr. Rajesh Bogavalli, Mr. Indranil Shaha, and we would request our member, Mr. AVPS Chakravarti, to come up on this stage to please give the memento. To Ms. Manjusha Singh. And to Mr. Rajesh Bogavalli. Thank you so much. We'll have a group photo, please.